back in good old Stores.
Stores, Connecticut.
Making your first take debut. How we feeling? Big time?
I feel great. I'm happy to be here, and I'm just ready to have some fun.
Listen, Get Up was just the warm-up.
Oh.
So you buckle up for these
I had
folks.
to get up.
First of all, welcome to the show, my brother. Welcome to the show. Happy to see you. Proud of you. The other thing that I want to say is this to the American people. Contrary to what you're seeing, we are not abusing Molly. I know she loaded up with Connecticut folks. She need all the help she could get, but we have not been beating up on her. She just needs assistance, and that's why Rudy's there today.
I got my bodyguard. We're good. We got
my guard down.
Hey, listen,
at
least there's 2 people in America that know where the hell Stores, Connecticut is. I mean, right now, these are 2 people there. I'm just saying.
Banners, banners.
There's a
basketball capital of the world.
A lot of championships there.
Yeah, back to back.
Also a lot of farms.
True.
Yep,
there is a lot of farms.
There's
pastures,
there's cows, there's ice cream. Elle, you pipe down, Georgia.
I know.
All right, let's dive into it, guys. Amid the Suns' struggles, a lot of blame has been pointed at Kevin Durant, despite averaging his regular numbers. KD's co-star, Devin Booker, meanwhile, is shooting his worst field goal percentage since the 2017-2018 campaign and lowest three-point percentage since 2020-2021. Phoenix is 11th in the West. Here's KD on his future.
I want my career to end on my terms. That's the only thing.
Bingo.
That's the only thing I'm worried about. I get why y'all want to trade me, and y'all looking at it just from simple fact that's just business. But from me looking at it, I'm just like, it just don't make sense for either side right now to go through that. You know what I'm saying? When we just play the season out, and if that's the decision you want to make, in the off season, then you figure it out.
So big, yeah.
It's just such a big change to make, and I've been through it before. I was like, damn, that's not really it.
S.A., what's your visceral reaction to what you just heard?
I understand where he's coming from, but I just think that, although I do understand it and we have to accept it, this is a future Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players in NBA history. A lot of times people are not taking into account that the expectations that come with greatness is a compliment to your greatness, not an insult to it. And when you think about Kevin Durant and what he's saying, you can't tell me that any basketball purist wants to hear what he said in that regard. You want to see and hear Kevin Durant talking about how he wants to chase a championship, how he's still starving to capture the trophy again. That's what you want to hear him saying, as opposed to where it's comfortable, how you don't want to move in mid-season, how things could be a bit chaotic if you go from one location to another. Kevin Durant is one of those rare talents. It don't matter where he goes, he can fit in. I don't care what team in the NBA you pick. Kevin Durant coming to your squad is an additive. It's a plus. It's not a minus. That's the greatness that he brings to the table. And so when you look at it from that standpoint and you hear him talking about really not wanting to be moved in season, not wanting to be traded in season or what have you, and you hear players reacting to that in a very positive fashion. What they're talking about is sustaining and maintaining a level of control, where the team doesn't have control over you. You're controlling your own future. All of us want that. There's no crime in that. I'm simply saying, considering his greatness, watching it wither away in Houston, who's not even in the play-in tournament if the season were to begin today, is an incredible disappointment. And you don't want to hear somebody of his caliber pointing to that and shoving that aside for the issues of comfort. That's where I come from, Wendy.
Rudy, where are you on this?
Obviously, what we saw was a candid conversation between, former teammates and all that stuff. So I think he was being very candid and about his feelings and all that stuff. But we are talking about Kevin Durant, the Hall of Famer, and also the 37-year-old Kevin Durant. Yeah. So any team that is going to make a decision to try to move him and take him on is going to have to give up a lot because of what he's done. Now, I personally don't see too many teams willing to do that, besides the teams that need to make that little push. Now, we talked about it earlier about which teams they were, but like you said, he is a Hall of Famer, first ballot, I believe.
Easily.
I know him. I know him personally. He's been one of the hardest people for me to ever guard. But I do also think that at this point, it's only a certain amount of teams that
because of his age.
Because of his age, and this is a young man's league now, and you got to move a lot of people for that guy, and you have to have a plan.
Wendy?
I don't 100% buy his reasoning that the reason he didn't want to go to Golden State was because they had to trade too much for him. I mean, that may be partially true. They were going to have to acquire Jimmy Butler and then move Jimmy Butler to Phoenix, so that was part of the move. Like, he's correct. And by the way, it kind of shows an awareness and a learning, because when he got traded to Phoenix, they had to trade a crazy amount for him. But I also think that he had his other reasons. But what I think is more interesting to me is that he's given the Suns a bit of a pass. As far as I know, the Suns were well into negotiations to trade him when he didn't know that. Now, when he found out about it, he stopped it, and the Warriors respected his decision. And I do think that's interesting. But this is at least the second time he could have gone after the Suns for going about it without letting him know. And instead, he's been chill about it. And I suspect that's because he intends to work with them this summer to do what he just said, which is to end his career on his terms. So to me, the Suns are going through the motions, and he's going, trying to, rally them. It's not working. One of the big storylines of the summer is where Kevin Durant is going to want to end on his terms.
I'm sorry, I found his statements to Draymond to be the most relatable thing Kevin Durant has ever said. That same excuse is why I cancel on all of my friends when they call and say, you've got to go to this amazing event. I'm like, that sounds cool, but I got to put on shoes and get dressed. And he's earned that right. I'm with Wendy. I think if this is not Golden State, I know that he said on that same podcast, mocked the critics that say he didn't want to go back to Golden State because of all of the crap that he got when he was there before, and the idea that he has some kind of issue with their medical staff. I know he said none of that is true. I don't believe him. I also don't believe him when he says that he wanted to see where this thing could go with Phoenix. The man is still doing very Kevin Durant things. He's averaging over 27 points per game. He's shooting 40% from three-point range, and they are still losing. They've still lost 9 of their last 11. But what you want to hear from a guy of his caliber, a surefire Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players, to me, someone who perfected the position. You want to hear him say that he is in pursuit of a championship everywhere he goes, but I don't think there's anything wrong with him admitting at this point and stage in my career, I've done this a couple of times, mid-season trades, and I wasn't with it. And I think he's showing a huge amount of professionalism by saying, you want to trade me in the offseason, I understand. This is not working. Clearly it's not working. And he is the biggest impediment to Phoenix getting better, right? Sometimes you have to get worse to get better. Bradley Beal, his contract is untradeable and Devin Booker's off limits. But I think he's showing a lot of professionalism, recognizing that this is headed towards a divorce. It's just a divorce that he was hoping would happen in the offseason, so it wouldn't be as disorienting. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, you're entitled to your feelings as well, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, because there is no wrong answer here. This is Kevin Durant's life, and he can feel the way that he wants to feel. But as basketball fans, what I'm trying to say is that you can be critical of the thought without being critical of him. And what I'm, excuse me, and what I mean by that is this. Looking at Kevin Durant, I don't want to see him home in April. Period. He's so great. He's so marvelous. I believe that a guy like that should be playing into May and possibly June. We saw him go to 3 straight NBA finals, win back-to-back titles. Rudy, you know how I feel. Bottom line is, if Kevin Durant didn't get hurt, he hadn't torn his Achilles, they three-peating. But Toronto ain't beating them. They took Toronto out in 5 easily. Easily. Might have swept them, okay? We get that. But since that time, let's understand something that has transpired here. Kevin Durant, if he didn't have a size 13, the largest sneaker at the time, 12.5, they go to the finals as far as I'm concerned. They beat Milwaukee, they beat Atlanta in that Eastern Conference Finals. And then after that, they probably beat Phoenix in the NBA Finals. That's what I believe, okay? Since that time, Kevin Durant has won 2 playoff series. 2 playoff series. He's home in April. And I'm saying to you, when you look at this guy, a prolific scorer, a basketball savant, somebody, just a professional scorer, anybody that covers the game of basketball that watches it, you know it, Elle, you know it, Rudy, you know it, Wendy. Kevin Durant is on that level. And to see him, his name, have 2 playoff series in the last 4 to 5 years, to be swept like 2 to 3 times, that's very bad. And so when that has happened, and that's been the backdrop over the last 4 years or so, and you're going on a podcast and you're talking about, your comfort and how, you ain't really interested in moving. I'm not saying there's no crime in that. I get it. It's just not something basketball fans would want to hear from someone that great. That's all I'm saying.
Stephen A., let me piggyback on that sentiment about Kevin Durant. Obviously, we all know, as we said, first ballot Hall of Famer. He has moved around quite a bit. So, Rudy, I want to ask you this. Do you feel like his lack of success without Steph Curry is a knock on his legacy?
No, I don't think it's a knock on his legacy. I mean, he's still the Finals MVP with Steph. So, I mean, nobody's denying his talent or what he's done. I think the perception of him changes because even having that question is a thing. Like, are we questioning how good he is as a player because he hasn't won without Steph? And I don't think that should be the case at all. But like we said, he's first ballot Hall of Famer. He has the pedigree of the greats. So like as far as affecting his legacy, no. But how we think of what he can do without a supporting cast, yeah, maybe a little bit.
Stephen A., what do you attribute the lack of success to at these different spots?
Well, this is why Kevin Durant came at me, because I pointed to leadership. And what I mean by that is, at some point in time when you're that dude, because he is that dude, okay, in terms of your own ability, then you maximize the talent around you. People who are great sometimes have to be headaches. Now, some people want to get along with everybody else. I'm not in any way accusing Kevin Durant of being that. But when he says he is a brother that chills, that's right, put Rudy up on the screen because he don't have to respond. He know I'm telling the truth. Kevin Durant is one of those cats who is very, very chill. He likes to do him. You understand? He does him, you do you, and we be on our way. A lot of folks, when you think about it, and it's not always about the MJs or the Kobes or anybody else. When you win, let's take into account a guy like Chris Paul. Chris Paul is a basketball savant in the eyes of a lot of people. They call him a point guard, for crying out loud, because that's how sensational he is as a point guard. Chris Paul, in some people's eyes, is not the most likable dude in the world. I love him, but a lot of people might not like him. He doesn't give a damn, because guess what? He's trying to win. And he's going to hold you accountable. And when he rolls up on a team, excuse me, everybody got to roll. Let's make sure we do our damn job. He ain't trying to be your friend. He ain't trying to get along. He's trying to maximize the potential of everybody around him. And if that means ruffling feathers a bit, that is something the greats have been willing to do. Kevin Durant has given no impression that that element of his personality is something he is willing to display. And as a result, I think people around him have gotten away in his career with being a bit less than what they're capable of being, because you don't have somebody like him in your face saying, yo, you're gonna do what you're supposed to do, or we're going to get you the hell up out of here. That is what I think is missing. But it is the only thing that I think is missing from the greatness of Kevin Durant.
That just is not his. That's.
Oh, Ellie, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Elle.
I was just gonna say that's just not his personality type. And like honestly, if you're Kevin Durant, you're so tired of people moving the goalpost. Like I remember just a few years ago, it was a mark on his legacy that he did join Steph Curry and the Warriors, a team that didn't need him and had already won, and what a cupcake, and oh my God, and is there an asterisk because he joined already a winner, and what does that say? And now it's a knock on his legacy that he hasn't won since he left? I mean, listen, if you were to believe the reason that Kevin Durant left the Warriors, if you believe the internet, it comes down to one of two reasons. That he listened to all of that chatter about you need to go build your own thing, or that he didn't trust the medical staff who told him he would be fine with that calf injury. And then, of course, we all know what happened in the finals. I was there. I was there at that game in Toronto. I remember looking at KD's face, and it was like he just, the disappointment, feeling like he was let down, led astray, and bamboozled. I don't know if that's actually how he felt, but that's what it looked like. But for Kevin Durant's legacy to have to be wrapped up with how he won a championship, where he won a championship, Rudy hit it. Yeah, he won with Steph, but he was Finals MVP twice, by the way, in the league. But we've never seen anybody as efficient at three-level scoring as KD. We've never seen anybody who is a guy that you can plug and play literally on any team. And to me, that is also an example of leadership. Not just the guy that's rallying everybody, but the guy that can make it work absolutely anywhere you put him, and that is Kevin Durant.
After Wendy, I'm coming back at you for something you said, Elle, but go ahead.
Nothing gets me more riled up in this topic, and I'm in danger here sitting next to Stephen A. in L.A.
Yes.
First off, Elle, he was leaving Golden State even before the Achilles injury because he had already decided that. So it was a terrible thing that happened, but just put that aside. You can't Stephen A., you're so brilliant at debating, but on this particular topic, you undercut your own argument. I've never quite seen. You can't on one hand say that he would have been they would have easily beaten Toronto in 2019 if he was healthy. And then, you're not alone on this, by the way.
Okay, good.
You can't say that they would have beaten Toronto in 2019 if he were healthy and then devalue the 2 titles that happened before that, which people do every single day in this argument, okay? The quality of the NBA in those years, and Rudy knows this better than anybody because he was in the NBA competing at the highest level at this time. People just look at the finals. They say, oh, it was 4-1 and 4-0. So they think, oh, they didn't need him. He chased that championship. The San Antonio Spurs were awesome. They had 2 60-win teams. If Kawhi doesn't sprain his ankle, I don't even know if the Warriors get through that series, that one series. By the way, that was with KD on the team. They go 7 games the following year. They go 7 games with the Rockets, with KD on the team. If Chris Paul doesn't hurt his hamstring, they may not get to the finals that year. That was with KD, okay? So the reason, and by the way, the 2017 Cavs team, the year after the comeback, that was the best Cavs team LeBron was ever on.
Okay.
All right? They don't beat that team without Kevin Durant. The only reason the Warriors won the 2 titles was because Durant was there. His legacy is flawless. And now, I'm going to say something else here.
Okay.
You can't criticize, if you want to criticize his leadership, that's fine. And I know you and Perk do, and that's fine. If you want to say it's a weakness for him, whether he agrees with it or not, that's fine. But you can't be angry at him for changing teams, looking to be with strong players who can be leaders, so that he doesn't have to play that role, and then criticize him for not being a good leader.
Okay. Do I get to respond?
You do.
Okay. This is First Take. So let me be very, very clear. The only thing that upsets me is when I'm misquoted or my positions are misrepresented because I don't hire from a damn soul. I come on here 10 hours a week live. I know that I can speak fluent English. I know what the hell I said. I am the guy, Brian Windhorst, for the purposes of this discussion, Wendy, you know I love you. But Brian Windhorst, I am the guy that called it the softest move by a superstar we had ever seen in NBA history when he departed from Oklahoma City to Golden State. I also am the guy that sat across from Kevin Durant on the boardroom and said, this is the reason. I said, I'm going to stop saying that. Why? Because people misconstrued it, acting as if I was saying that there was something that should besmirch his legacy in terms of him joining the Golden State Warriors, as if he wasn't the player that he wasn't. I said, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was, and Rudy, you should hear this, my issue with Kevin Durant at the time was, you're so great that going to that team so dramatically shifted the balance of power, there was no reason to watch the NBA that season because nobody was going to beat them. That was my only argument against him. That is what I said. Now, when he went there, I also said he was the best player on that team, even with the Splash Brothers. They went 3 straight. I also said he is a 2-time champion. He is a 2-time NBA Finals MVP. And under no circumstances should anybody think to minimize that. This is where everything hit the fan because relatives and others got involved because they misconstrued my statement when they went to Boston, Golden State Warriors. And they were playing in the finals in Boston, Al and Rudy and Wendy. What happened was I said, it's going to be unfair. It's not right because he doesn't deserve it. But if Steph Curry wins the championship, Kevin Durant will be viewed as the guy who left Steph Curry for Kyrie Irving and Brooklyn rather than staying in a situation where he clearly would have won multiple championships. I articulated that it was unfair. I said that's not right. He doesn't deserve that, but in the end, that's how it's going to be viewed. I was excoriated for stating the obvious. In other words, this is going to be the narrative. I'm in the narrative business. We're in the media. And I was condemned for pointing out ahead of time what the media was going to do. Then the media turns around and does it. And then I got my colleagues like Wendy and ultimately Elle and others alluding to it being me, when all I did was say, yo, that's going to happen. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying he deserves it, but it's going to happen. Then he moves on. And he goes from Brooklyn. And he goes to Phoenix. And what I'm saying is, no, it's nothing wrong with him departing from a situation where he's going from one place as a leader to some place where he might get to defer or whatever. What I'm saying is, when you're that great, you do find yourself in a position where you ultimately need to hold people accountable. This is First Take, okay? We got great producers on this show. We got great talent. All of y'all on the air. Elle, I can't thank you enough for the job you do. Molly, hold on to this moment. Girl, I need you. You're the matriarch of the show. I don't ever want to do First Take without my girl Molly, okay? But here's the deal.
Big mama.
But here's the deal. Here's the bottom line. You're not going to come on. I'm talking about in terms of leadership. You ain't going to come on this show and be half-ass and get away with it. What's Stephen A. going to do? You know heads gonna roll. You know how I roll. I'm telling you that in any profession where there's leadership involved, it can't be, I'm just gonna do me. You don't do you, that's on you. Oh, no, no, no. Not if my success is predicated on your involvement. If it is, I'm gonna ruffle some feathers because I'm trying to win. That's what I have said. That is all that I have said. Now, if that makes me a criminal in the eyes of KD and those who love him so much, so be it. But I got news for you.
Stephen
I
A.
got love for him.
Brooklyn situation specifically that obviously did not pan out, to say the least. You can't put that on Kevin Durant, correct?
Hold on. Not necessarily so. In other words, we're not talking about just him leaving. We're talking about all the stuff that was going on in Brooklyn. Now, it wasn't his fault, but sitting back and just saying, yo, this is how it is, and everybody got a right to do what they want to do, and that and being distant from it, nah, not when it directly impacts you. That's all anybody was saying. That's their feelings. That doesn't mean you're condemning him. It just means that's the way it is. When you're that dude, people are going to look at you to make the difference, not just individually, but how you affect the collective whole.
Rudy?
Yeah, I honestly think, and I agree with you to an extent, I think the only thing Kevin Durant is really guilty of is trying to find something that he can create on his own. He's that great. And for him to leave and go here and there to try to find something that he could get if he just wanted it, you know. And, you know, this is a guy that I know, we all know, loves the game of basketball. And that's all he wants to do. All the other stuff is just, he lets that go and whatever. And we've seen guys before put their hands in a lot of different things and try to demand certain things. That's not Kevin. It's not his demeanor. So I think, like I said before, the only thing he's really guilty of is trying to find something that he has or he had or something he could create on his own. So that's the biggest thing with Kevin. And I don't think that affects his legacy. It's just not him. He's one of those guys that, like you said, is a plug-and-play player. He can play anywhere. He showed that. But with that being said, he's good enough to be able to make what he wants wherever he wants, and he hasn't done that.
And he wouldn't be the only Hall of Famer that
Not
had ego is involved, that wanted to go and create their own thing. We saw Shaq do the same thing after LA. He wanted to go someplace else and prove that he could win without Kobe. And fortunately, he had a young sprite, Dwayne Wade, that helped carry him across that rock. But if you take the Miami Heat part of his resume out and look at the stops in Boston or wherever else that he was, like, essentially, if Kevin Durant can't solve that riddle and get that championship, then he will have been what Shaq would have been if Shaq hadn't have gotten that championship in Miami. I just think that we want so bad for Kevin Durant to be a personality type, an archetype. Like, Stephen A., the type of leader that you are is why you've been so consistent. It's why you've been number one for so long, and that you are an example for everyone around you. Like, the one thing that everyone at ESPN knows is that you're not going to outwork Stephen A. Smith, right? So whenever we're commiserating about our schedules, we know that the face of the network, which is Stephen A. Smith, works his ass off. And I appreciate that. But that is your leadership style, and it's just not Kevin Durant's. And it feels like for so long, we've just tried to make this guy someone that he is not. And what he is someone that makes your team instantly better. He may not be the type of leader that's carrying the team on his back, but he's doing his part.
Can I push back now on the really quick, Stephen A.? Can I push back on the analogy of Stephen A.? Because obviously I co-sign on everything in terms of the work ethic. But in terms of Stephen A.'s leadership, he does hold people accountable. So that's kind of the difference. And I think that's why he's expecting to see that from Kevin Durant, that specifically.
Well, yes, I appreciate you saying that, Molly. That is true. But the other part to all of that is that it's not just holding somebody accountable. It's the reason why. Like, if you're doing your own thing and it has no effect on me, right? It might not be my flavor. But so what? That's your business. The second it affects me, now we got a problem. The second it affects the show, now we got a problem. You go on SportsCenter all the time, Elle, doing a marvelous job that you do. You ask these questions. This is not foreign. It's not a foreign subject to you. You've heard a multitude of people talking about it. And Wendy, I'm coming to you with this. You know good and damn well I'm not just sitting here with some isolated opinion living in a bubble. You know good and damn well Hall of Famers are in my face all the time, your face and others, holding us accountable to hold those accountable the way we held them accountable. You know they do that all the time. Wait a minute now. When we were doing it, y'all said this, y'all said this, y'all said that. There's a standard. And these are the people in our ear, Molly. Rudy, you know this. Elle, you got to know this. They're in our ear. They're in our face, coming up to us. Yo, why you let them off the hook? You didn't do that then. You didn't do it this year. You didn't do it that year. These players that have attitudes with pundits are not realizing some of the loudest pundits are those who played the game on a Hall of Fame level that say, yo, what you doing about that? They do it all the time.
Stephen A., to Elle's point, because you do that, and I get that other Hall of Famers do that and other people, you're expecting Kevin Durant to lead like you. And what Elle and Rudy are saying is he's never going to be that guy. He's just leading through his play on the court and what he delivers each day.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I'm expecting you to win because you're that great. So if what you're doing is not working as it pertains to winning, try something else or retire because you're so marvelous. You shouldn't be home in April.
And then it's going to be another and then it'll be another topic on another show where we go. Is it ruined his legacy that he's a mercenary and he's just seeking greener pastures?
His legacy is not
win.
ruined. He's one of the all-time greats. His legacy is untouchable.
I'll just make this real easy. Does he win in Oklahoma City if he stays there, knowing that Kawhi is leading the Spurs and knowing the Golden State is there and knowing what LeBron's got in Cleveland? Does he win the championship if he stays in Oklahoma City?
No.
Do the Warriors win the championship against LeBron and against KD, who they barely beat, and against Kawhi? KD. Okay.
No.
What are we talking about? He went there, they won, okay? Why did they lose in Brooklyn? Did they lose in Brooklyn because of leadership? No. They lost in Brooklyn because KD was hurt, and then Harden got hurt, and then Kyrie got hurt, and then COVID happened, and Kyrie went off. That's why they lost there, okay? Why are they losing in Phoenix? They're losing in Phoenix because they traded too much to get him, right? Yeah. And so now he's saying, even though I don't think it's a whole answer, don't trade too much for me because it's already undercut me. We're analyzing this too much. This is actually very, very simple. He went to the place where he could win a championship, and he's had circumstances that have prevented it from happening since.
Wendy, those cliff notes, I mean,
those cliff notes are nice. You're just leaving one point out. And I've heard you talking about KD on many occasions. I'll be watching in the future to see how consistent your words are about KD,
here we go.
Mr. Brian Windhorst. Because the fact of the matter is, this brother, as one of the unquestionable all-time greats, and I don't want to hear me talking about his legacy. I know his legacy is intact. I know how phenomenal he is. This is not about that. This is about the fact that over the last 4 to 5 years, that brother has been home in April.
Yeah,
we ain't even talking championships. We talk about he's been home in April.
We're saying we can't put it on
True.
him, but you're
but
just
you will
Stephen
never
A.
find
being
any
Stephen A.
footage
right now.
of me degrading.
I never said you would. I never said I'd find that out. I'm just talking about the fact that he's going home in April. You act like that don't matter. We're supposed to ignore all of that. He is that great.
That I'll give
Not
you.
April.
That one I'll give you.
You're damn right. Well, that's what I've been saying.
All right.
I said the championship. I said April.
It's going to be April this year, too.
Yes, it is.
Anyone else you want to hold accountable right now before we move on? I just want to make sure we're good.
I got about an hour and a half left. We good. I'm sure I'll figure out something.
All right, cool.